Okay, so thank you. I'm sure by now you get to know a bit more around the table. The goal of this workshop, by when you walk out today, you at least have 3 new contacts. So you can walk away and do some work on open data. How about that? Good deal? So we have a few new members coming here, so I'd like to welcome again. So just to get started, one of the very reason why we're here, because the City of Toronto now really start taking a very strategic approach to how we can push our open data agenda further out with the collaboration and the working partnership with different communities, various communities. So we really wanted to promote the whole notion of community of open data, right? Because we feel that as part of the open government, open data for the City of Toronto is an enabler for us to really demonstrate how we do business in the city, transparency, accessibility, and accountability. So that's one agenda for open government. But I feel very strongly there is so much out there that we can actually partner with the communities to really help addressing a lot of civic issues. Because as you know, government can't actually be everything and do everything, right? So we recognize for the past, in 2009, open data, our journeys in 2009, has actually helped us to really realize a lot of insight, and also a lot of challenges, because we still continue trying to learn what is it that we want to do with open data from a city perspective, but what is it that the public can actually use the data and can really help us, not also only helping the city, but also helping the community and helping to address the civic issue, and in many instances, help addressing the whole socio-economic innovation, right? Job creation, startup entrepreneur, so there's a lot of amazing and also exciting opportunity that the city really wanted to explore with the community, with businesses and different sectors. So today is really one of the very first workshop, and there's going to be many workshops that we're going to try to also continue throughout the rest of the year. It's really moving forward, trying to establish some discussion and dialogue and conversation in how the city should really move forward in establishing open data strategy for the city. And it's not for the city at the City of Toronto, it's for the big city of Toronto, the city, our city, right? So I wanted to distinguish the City of Toronto as a government, but also the City of Toronto as our city. Me, a citizen living in Toronto, this is my city, right? So I'd like to engage you tonight. We have lots of activities that Denika is already organized for us with a lot of help from Gabe, from Bianca. Bianca can't make it with us tonight, with a lot of input with Richard as well, to really go through a lot of interesting activity, dialogue, and the outcome is being able to continue creating, come up with suggestions and ideas and input to the end result is the open data strategy that we wanted to aim for this fall, so we can take to the council and we can continue forward. I wanted to actually give you a kind of a sneak announcement that we are working toward September, and September the 19th, mark that in your calendar, that we're going to have a Toronto Open Data Forum. And this is going to be where we're going to want to showcase, with community, with agency, and the city, what is it that's happening with Toronto Open Data. So once again, welcome. I'm going to hand it over to Denis, that is going to start actually get the ball rolling for tonight. Okay.
Thanks, Lynn. Thank you for the applause for matches. We are at a pretty exciting stage. Like Lan said, this is the beginning in a series of consultations of what we want to engage with the community on. But this isn't just the beginning. We can think about it that there's been kind of 3 phases of open data. In the first phase, Mayor Miller at the time announced the open data program. We launched a catalog in November of that year, and then we started to report back to council on the ideas of what does open government mean and what does open data mean for the city. The second phase of our maturity was talking about how the open data program will be built, looking about how open data impacts aspects of the city, and how do we move towards being a world-class digital city. But finally, in the end, in November 2016, a report to Executive Committee about developing an open data strategic plan. Well, what was really interesting during this phase is we heard a lot from the community about what their expectations were about open data and how they wanted to engage with the city. Heard from Richard Pietro, Gabe Sowney, who are both here today, Mark Richardson, Leah Mileto, Brian Kelsey, Yale Fox, Devin Tu, among others, came into deputations about informing the direction that they wanted the city to move in with open data. And we appreciate that effort. We're in this third phase, this new Lighting of the Match series to ignite the open data program. And it's about where is the direction that we go with our open data strategic plan. You'll see in April 2017, April 19th, we're bringing a report to council to talk about our ideas for how do we move forward with a strategic plan. Here's the report from November 17th, 2016. And it talks about building an open data strategic plan in 2017. So there's two pieces of that are really important. One is a plan that outlines what the vision, mission, goals, direction of the open data program should be. But the other really key piece is the work plan. This is our approach to how do we get to the goals of the strategic plan, but really this is the angle on how do we work together to reach those pieces. It's kind of like we're creating two types of cookbooks. One is a cookbook that talks about the value of cooking and why cooking is important, but the other, also most important, is the recipes. And this is the piece that we build together, and like any good cookbook, you have to practice the recipes. This is the iterative piece where we come up with ideas together to help solve the issues that we're facing with the program. So we need a comfortable, safe space that we can learn to iterate together and experiment. Today's one of those experiments. And we've been practicing. On just earlier this month, on Open Data Day, we brought a group together, as well as with the province, half public servants and half members of the public, to work together in a collaborative space to build an open data best practices document. This was one of the outputs of it was done in Gitbook. And we generated content in a whole bunch of different sections about how to identify, prioritize, publish, prepare, and grow open data. We'll also be going to events like Civic Tech put on for Codacross 2017, where we helped enable Transportation Division and Raphael Dumas to stand in there. Put your hand up, Raphael. Yeah. Helped lead a traffic dashboard project working with transportation and Bluetooth data. So we've been engaging as a city, both the open data team, but also members within divisions, into the community at various events. One is the Civic Tech Toronto event, and the other is Open Toronto, started by Richard Pietro and the crowd, of an open data book club event. And going there, we've learned how, or just observed, these different experimental models for engaging with community groups, but also how the government can embed in those. That's not all. The ecosystem's really big. Like Lan was talking about, like Ryerson, DMZ. Maybe you recognize a group if you're on here or a part of it. And it's important for us to understand how we can best leverage and work together with these groups as well. The community is quite big on open data. The community involved in open data is big inside the city as well. On the top left, I think Harvey Lowe, I saw him here. Yeah, over there. You can see at the top the well-being portal. I'm sure a lot of you in the audience are familiar with it. We also have internally our data governance framework, so working on policies, best practices, approaches. Andres here. We have our geospatial team, which we'll introduce in the back. But basically, at Parks, Forestry, and Rec, a lot of divisions that are interested in developing open data. And we know that open data is in the news. So here's one about traffic hotspots at the big transportation team. I can see Raphael there. And so we know that this is critical. What we've also learned from watching all this and engaging with the community is we need to, in this third phase of open data, start to align our approach in a particular direction. We need to change and put our focus towards solving civic issues, not just releasing data inventories, but how are we most effective at causing civic benefit. Also, work on our models and better prepare for co-development with the community. And also in the same way, not only build our internal capacity, but also the capacity of the external community to know how to engage with us and build that and foster new models of co-participation. The only way we're going to do that is by practicing. Put your hand up if you're a public servant. And put your hand up if you're a member of the community. This is what we were kind of aiming for tonight. 50-50. Right? The idea of learning best practices from internal and external and bringing them together to find new models to work together. We have a roadmap. Our next thing that we just talked about is working towards an April report that's going to council about how we want to do this move forward about collaborating together to develop our strategic plan and the roadmap for the strategic plan. And like Lan said, there are a number of different events. That first red dot's today, but we have ongoing consultation about how do we build the strategic plan. Like Lan said, this September event where we want to be both a celebration but a showcase of the progress that we made over the summer, learning to co-build and develop together. And these consultation events will help also inform our roadmap going forward, and we see each year a successive series of refining a work plan, figuring out like those recipes, what's working and what's not working, and how do we change and iteratively develop. So that brings us to what we're going to do today.
And then this is something that I also would like to add. Open data is really also part of what we call is the digital infrastructure that would help us to enable the whole smart city agenda that we wanted to. We talk a lot in the city about moving City of Toronto toward a digital city that establish a lot of digital infrastructure, and data is it's probably the most important component in order to be able to enable using a lot of technology, Internet of Things, to really create a lot of smart capabilities, smart services, smart transportation, smart building. This is really have a lot of strategic implication for the city, because we can all imagine in the next 5 to 10 years, City of Toronto, like many other cities around the world in North America, going to go through a lot of disruptive changes because of the smart technology or disruptive technology. So what we are looking here is very, very strategic to get us into bringing community together, internal and external, but also raising awareness. In the city, one of our tasks and one of our very specific goal is being able to bring the executive, the management across the organization to be much more aware about data. Open data is just data. We have about 1 petabyte data in the city, and we have around over 1,000 applications in the city that we have tons of data. In publishing data, we need to know what data is actually most useful for the public, most also useful for the city, that can actually turn into some very specific useful product and services that actually also help us to enable this whole smart city agenda. So that's just one note I wanted to add, in terms of why we are also looking at this as very strategic, initiative. Okay, thank you.
On to the main event. So there's 4 activities tonight. First activity is about prioritization. So out of these council reports, there's also a number of motions. And they list specific things that they would like the open data team in the city to work on. A lot of them, let me just see if I have it highlighted here. It probably doesn't show up, but you can see that they're mentioned that we will address this item in the open data strategic plan. Okay, we're at that stage now. So we want to help develop a roadmap of which ones of these we should prioritize. How we're going to do it? We have an event onto the right. It's station 1, just over here. We have a listing of all of these items on flip cards that have Velcro on the back of them. And we'd like you to work together to organize them and put them in priority of this. Is it this year that we should focus on it? Is it a foundational element? Next year, 2019? Or is it a task that should be continuously ongoing? The second event is about principles. So in developing the Open Data Strategic Plan, we we realized that there should be guiding principles for us, both in the creation of it and that should be captured within the plan itself. So we've come up from our engagements, from that March 3rd event where we co-created with the public, themes of what those principles should be. So we printed them out on sheets of paper. I want you to highlight in green the elements of it that you like, that you think make sense to you. Highlight in pink the elements that you may not like or that you don't think make sense. And please, if you can, write in your comments on that if you think that it doesn't fit or that it should be modified or changed. Or if there's a new idea altogether, include it. And there's extra paper and staples if you have a lot to say. The third event is all about open data opportunities. We realized this idea of also wanting to address civic issues. So we have 3 poster boards in Station 3 over on the side. We want to focus the conversation around data set driven items, precedent driven, and civic issue driven. What that means is, if it's data set driven, there's 3 categories. What's a data set of interest? What's the opportunity? And what's the real lever to make that happen or to cause it at the end? So for instance, a data set of interest might be sewage bypass incidents. The opportunity is, well, it creates better info about water quality. And the lever is Blue Flag group that's interested in beach water quality, maybe for Canada. For precedent-driven, we know that there's a lot of movement in other sectors. The province has made leaps and bounds forward, and we want to learn and engage and build on top of that, as well as other cities. So for instance, you may know that Chicago and their cityscape has development applications. If Toronto opened up that data, we would have residents better informed about upcoming developments. And the lever for that is if we have informed, engaged community, we have development transparency. We can build on top of that data. The third type is civic issue driven. So for instance, there could be a civic issue of, you can't find biking parking spaces. Well, if we make relevant data about locations of existing bike infrastructure, then what can get enabled? Well, we might be able to build easy-to-use websites that map this parking infrastructure, but also have the ability to maybe suggest where new bike parking infrastructure should be placed. For the fourth activity, which is in the back of the room, Scott, wave. Hey, that's Scott Webb from the Geospatial Competency Center at the city. We want to demo to you a beta of an open data visualization portal. So Scott can walk you through it, but here's some of the ideas and concepts with the technology that the city has already about developing an open data portal. We'd like to hear your thoughts on it. The fifth area is, of course, we want to meet and greet each other. We did that a bit at the table. There's coffee in the back to the left. If you want to take part in the activity, but if you also want to take a break and chat and meet people and greet, you can chat in that area, chat number 5. So we encourage you to do so. So basically how it's going to work is we're going to run in probably 20-minute intervals of moving from one station to the other. So at every 20 minutes, we'll go back on the mic and say change stations, and we'll rotate between them. At any point, you can go and circle to the chat area if you like. So the first stage is breaking up into 4 groups. We all know how to do that. So there's 4 areas, 1, 2, 3, and 4. You can see it from the number sign. Go to the area maybe you're most interested at first. If you see there's a lot of people at that area, don't worry. You'll be able to get there in time. Go and focus on another station and hit it on your next round. Okay, on that note, have fun. Yeah, take care.